All right, guys, welcome to part 53 of my overview of the Bible story. Thank you so much for joining me in another episode today. I really appreciate it. This episode might be a bit long, so grab yourself some snacks or make a cup of coffee or something, because we're going to talk about Jesus and the Gentiles. The Gentiles, very important in this story. Remember, Gentiles means not Jews. Okay, so all the people in the world, Gentiles like me, I'm a Gentile, guys. So let's just dive right into the Bible. Let's look at a couple of stories where Jesus is interacting with Gentiles, okay? So when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Okay, a centurion is a Roman soldier. All right, a centurion is like a commander of the, 100 men. That's why, this position is called a centurion, I think. You're the commander of like 100, you've got 100 men underneath you. So you're like a general or a commander or whatever. You're a pretty powerful person. Okay, a centurion came to Jesus asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? What's the guy going to say? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve to have you come under my roof, but just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes. And that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. Wow. So Jesus is asking the centurion, would you like me to come to your house and heal him? And the centurion says, I'm not even worthy for you to come under my roof. I mean, just say the word. You're the commander, Jesus. You have authority over demons, over sick illnesses, and all kinds of stuff. You're the boss. You don't have to come to my house. Just say the word, and my servant will be healed. So what's Jesus going to say? When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven. We're going to talk about that in the next episode. Okay, so stay tuned for that. But he's talking about a feast. Okay, so many people will come from east and west. Now, what does that mean? Gentiles. Right? Gentiles will come to the feast in the kingdom of heaven, and will feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Right? They were the patriarchs of the Israelites. Right? Who's the father of Israel? Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. And God changed Jacob's name to Israel. Right? So, wow. A lot of people will come to the feast from the whole world, but the people actually, look at this, the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown out. That means the people in the kingdom already, or the people who should be the ones to inherit the kingdom, they're going to be thrown out. What does that mean? Subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside. We'll talk about that in the next episode. Okay, but just notice that Jesus is predicting here, he's promising that Gentiles will come into the party. And he's saying this right after talking to the Gentile, the Roman soldier, he says, I've not found anyone in Israel with such great faith as this Roman soldier. Wow. Incredible. Okay. Then Jesus said to the centurion, go, let it be done as you believed it would. And his servant was healed at that moment. Man, Jesus, he just loves the guy's faith. The guy's servant was healed. Incredible. Okay, so that's the first story. The second story we're going to take a look at, Jesus goes up here to the area of Tyre and Sidon. Okay, now that's quite a ways outside of Israel, right? I mean, that's in modern day Lebanon. So the last story was here in Capernaum with the centurion. Now Jesus is going up here to way up there. So what's going to happen up there? So leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Oh, wow. What's Jesus going to do? Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Wow. What's she going to say? She says, yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Wow. Then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. Just like that. Wow, notice, Jesus didn't even meet the daughter. And Jesus didn't even meet the centurion's servant. All right, in both those cases, Jesus healed without even being near them. That's, wow, it's kind of interesting. So, here we have two stories of Gentiles, guys. Do you notice something? Whenever Jesus leaves Israel, he heals Gentiles. Remember the demon-possessed guy living in the graves? And then Jesus cast out the demon named Legion into the 2,000 pigs. That was over here, outside of Israel, in the country of the the Gerasenes. So we see that Jesus is leaving Israel sometimes to help Gentiles, to heal them. That's interesting, right? He goes up there. Now let's just look at what Jesus said, okay? So the woman, the Canaanite woman, she comes to Jesus and she's begging for him to heal her daughter. He doesn't answer even a word. And his disciples came and urged him, send her away. Okay, notice that the disciples want him to send her away. Does Jesus send her away? No, he doesn't. For she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Now, look at this answer. I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. Well, if that is the case, then what's he doing outside Israel? If he was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel, why is he now outside Israel? The reason he's outside Israel is to save that one woman. Right? That's the only thing we see him doing out here in the region of Tyre and Sidon. This is the only thing he does. He heals this one woman's daughter. That's it. That's the end of the story. like when he crossed the Sea of Galilee to heal that one guy with the demon. That was it. That was the story. So Jesus is willing to go to great lengths just for one person. Remember the parable of the lost sheep? If a sheep gets lost, the shepherd, the good shepherd, goes after the lost sheep and finds it. So Jesus is outside of Israel, and he's saying that I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. So what's going on? Did Jesus choose to go up there? Or was he maybe avoiding death threats? Because we've seen so far in the story, the Pharisees, they're planning to kill him. There's even a time when people come to him and say, Herod wants to kill you. He's planning to kill you. Remember Herod, not the King Herod who tried to kill Jesus when he was a baby. He had some children who are now reigning, who are also called Herod. So everybody's trying to kill Jesus, right from the time he was born, or the time he was a young child. Herod was trying to kill him. Now Herod's son is trying to kill him. The Pharisees are trying to kill him. Remember, just the normal Jews in the synagogue when he started his ministry, when he started talking about Gentiles, they just became furious, and they grabbed Jesus and they took him to the edge of a cliff, and they wanted to throw him off the cliff. So guys, we've seen so many already just in this series that so many times where the people are trying to kill Jesus. So maybe that's why he's up there, right? He's up there just to kind of lie low for a while. And while he's up there, but he has another meaning or another purpose for his trip, maybe. Or maybe this was his only purpose. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating. Why did he go up here? I'm sure it's to heal this woman's daughter, but maybe also because the people are trying to kill him. But notice that he was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. That's what he believes. That's what he says. So look at what he says here. It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Now, is Jesus calling this woman a dog? It kind of seems like that, right? Just hold that thought. We're going to talk about it in a few minutes. But first, I just want to mention the word right here. He's talking about rights. He's saying it's not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs. Okay, so what are the rights here? Who has the first right to the bread? Well, Israel has the first right. Jesus is saying Israel is the child that has the first treatment, the first right to the bread, and then the Gentiles are second. Okay, so Jesus is upholding this idea. He's not just saying, oh, well, I'm going to forget about Israel. I'm going to go over there to the Gentiles. And no, he's not doing that. He's saying, look, the children of Israel are the top priority. The Gentiles are the second. Okay? Now remember, Jesus is the bread. Remember, he's the bread, as we saw in the last episode. He's the true bread which came down from heaven. So, if the children are supposed to have the bread first, well, let me just ask you this question. If Israel rejects the bread, what should happen? What do you think should happen if Israel rejects Jesus, the bread? What would you do? What do you think the answer is here? If you have a child and the child rejects what you're trying to give your child, what would you do? Like Israel was Yahweh's special possession and therefore entitled to special treatment, right? This is just common sense. If you get married and, would your spouse be entitled to special treatment? Or would you just treat your spouse like you do everyone else? No, your spouse has special treatment, right? If you choose someone, they have somehow a special relationship with you, right? Guys, I just want to ask you, have you ever been chosen? Have you ever been chosen in life for something? It's very painful when you have not been chosen. Maybe, I don't know, you're chosen for different things, maybe a job or a relationship or different things. If you don't get chosen, it's painful. I remember, guys, when I was in my early 20s, I really needed a job. I needed some way to make money, and I just couldn't find a job. I literally applied to thousands and thousands of jobs. I just couldn't get one. And I was like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my resume? I couldn't figure it out. At that time, the economy was doing pretty bad in Alberta. And, I was trying so hard. Everybody else had jobs. It was just me. I don't know what was wrong with me. I couldn't get a job. I'd wake up, I remember some days I'd wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to apply for 100 jobs. And I would just spend like all day online applying, sending my resume to different companies and stuff like that. I tried so hard. I barely got any interviews. But of the interviews that I did get, I never got hired. So, how did I stay alive? I borrowed money from the bank. That's the only way I stayed alive during that time. I was unemployed for a whole year. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any income for a whole year. I was living off the bank. The bank was, giving me my bread, right? I didn't have any other way to stay alive. So guys, it was painful for me. It was a very painful time in my life to not be chosen for anything. Maybe you have really wanted to be in a relationship and nobody has chosen you. Maybe you feel like you're not good looking enough, or maybe you don't have enough money, or whatever the reason is. And so you feel like you're just not good enough, right? That's the thing. I'm not good enough to be chosen. Have you ever felt this? Guys, I felt this. I'm sure you felt this in your life. Now, let me ask you, did Yahweh choose Israel because they were good enough? What do you think? Did Yahweh choose Israel because they were a righteous nation? Still recording? Yes, we are, guys. What do you think? Now, I was watching a YouTube video recently made by a Jewish woman. Okay. Sometimes I follow, modern Jews on YouTube. I watch their videos because I want to see kind of what their attitude is, especially, their attitude about their book, the Tanakh, which is the Old Testament. Okay. And this woman was talking about the problems that Israel has always had. She said the reason God chose Israel because Israel was a righteous nation among all the people of the world. The reason God chose Israel was because they were righteous. And I was like, I don't know about that. And then she started talking about the Erev Rav. Okay, the Erev Rav. This is a Hebrew term to refer to the group of people that came up out of Egypt with them, who were non-Israelites. Remember when Moses, led the people of Israel out of Egypt? There was a big group of people, actually non-Israelites, who joined the Israelites and came up out of Egypt. And the Jews called that group the Erev Rav. And this woman was saying that, basically that God had chosen a pure people, right? The Israelites were a good, righteous, pure, group of people. And it was the heir of Rav who corrupted them. And even to this day, the reason Israel can't properly, become established as, like reach its heights, and achieve its goals and all that stuff. The reason is because she said the heir of Rav is still today mixed in among the pure Jews. And I was like, man, this woman doesn't know her own book. She doesn't know the Tanakh at all. Remember what happened right before Egypt? What happened right before the Israelites went down to Egypt? My leg's falling asleep here, guys. Yeah, I gotta stretch my leg out a bit. So maybe you need to take a stretch break, right? Stand up, stretch, and get your blood flowing a little bit. What happened right before? Like, how did the Israelites end up in Egypt? What happened? Do you remember? Remember Israel had 12 sons. The man named Israel had 12 sons. And what did they do? They tried to kill their brother. They planned to kill their brother Joseph. And it was actually the oldest brother, Reuben, who intervened and said, guys, let's not kill our brother. Let's just throw him into a well. So they threw him down into like a dry well, and then do you remember what happened? The traders came from like the north going south to Egypt, and the brothers sold their brother Joseph into slavery in Egypt. And that's how this pure people ended up down in Egypt. They weren't pure. Right from the very beginning, the first 12 children of Israel were trying to kill one of their brothers. They had hatred in their heart toward their younger brother, Joseph. So there were problems well before Egypt, right? So the heir of Rav, Joseph got sold as a slave 400 years before the heir of Rav, right? And so if we talk about, God choosing Israel because they were a righteous people, that's not true at all. Remember Abraham, God chose Abraham. He made a promise to him. He said, I'm going to bless you, Abraham, and in your descendants, the whole world will be blessed. Did God say, I'm choosing you, Abraham, because you are a righteous person? No, it wasn't that Abraham was a great guy. It was because Abraham had faith. So it says Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So Yahweh loved Abraham's faith so much that the righteousness went the direction from God to Abraham. It wasn't just there, and that's why God chose Abraham. The Bible doesn't say that at all. Okay? Abraham was probably a nice guy. I don't know. The Bible doesn't say much about his early life at all. But what it does say is that God loved his faith. Okay, so sometimes we think if I can just get good enough, then God will choose me. Right? If I can just become pure, then God will choose me. If I can be a righteous person, God will choose me. That's not how it works, guys. God doesn't choose pure people. He purifies chosen people. Let me say that again. God doesn't choose pure people. He didn't choose the people of Israel because they were righteous or they were pure. They weren't. We've seen this whole story. The Israelites have been a rebellious people, a stiff-necked people. They've made God so mad. God purifies chosen people. It's him who, God is always the one who's atoning for the sins of the people, right? It's just, that's what the Bible says. The Bible says nobody's pure. Nobody's pure at all. Remember that verse I shared a few episodes ago that I love? It says in the Psalms, it says, when my iniquities prevail against me, right? When all my sins, when they beat me, then you, God, atone for our transgressions. And we're going to see that happening in the next few episodes with Jesus. God sent his atonement, the sacrifice that paid for our sins, with Jesus on the cross. We're going to see that. But this is true, not this one. This is the true one. God purifies chosen people. First, he chooses sinners like you and me. And then he purifies us. Okay? He doesn't choose people because we're pure. That's the difference between Yahweh and all the other gods in the world, the fake gods. All those gods, which are Satan. Satan, wants us to believe that we're not good enough and we have to get good enough in order to be chosen. But with God, it's not that way. Okay, so if you've never been chosen before, guys, by anybody, you feel like nobody loves you, nobody cares about you, just remember who God is. Yahweh, the great God of Israel, who is the God of the whole world. He chooses sinners, and then he purifies them. Like, just think about Jesus and his 12 disciples. Were his 12 disciples great guys? Yes, some maybe were, like remember Nathaniel, when he saw Nathaniel, he said, "He's a true Israelite in whom there is no deceit." So Jesus said great things about Nathaniel. But we see with a lot of his disciples, they're just average guys, fishermen. They're sinners. They don't understand much what Jesus is saying. But he takes them and he's training them, right? He's going to take these simple people and he's going to use these simple fishermen to shame the great religious leaders of Israel. We're going to see that also in the next few episodes. That all the great religious, the Pharisees and everything like that, they say, who are these average people who they haven't even gone to school and they're doing great things like this? They're speaking great stuff. Like, how is this possible? Okay, so God loves to take the weak things of the world to shame the strong things. So if you think I'm so great, I'm successful, I have gotten my own strength, I have achieved my own success in life, watch out. Because you're just the kind of person that Yahweh likes to bring down, usually very suddenly. It's almost always very suddenly. The proud come to a sudden end. Okay, so it's really dangerous to be proud. Now, guys, I want to ask you this question. In this whole story, has Israel been excited that God chose them? Has this ever happened? Has Israel ever said, wow, God has chosen us as his special people among all the peoples in the world? We feel so honored about that. Let's make Yahweh happy. Let's find out what he wants. Let's do our responsibilities, because we have all these rights. He's given us all this blessing and we have access to God. We know his rules. We have all this stuff. Now let's do our job here in the world. Remember what Moses said? Moses said in the book of Deuteronomy, remember before Moses died, he gave his last message to the people called the book of Deuteronomy. He said to the Israelites, "For you are a people holy to Yahweh your God. Yahweh your God has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his people, his treasured possession. Oh man, Yahweh just loved Israel. Not because they were perfect, because he chose them. He loved them. And he's the one who purified them. He's the one who always protected them. He's the one who was their leader, right? Their king. And they've just rejected him throughout this whole story. They didn't even feel excited that they were his own special people. Guys, even animals get excited when they get chosen. Have you ever seen those videos on social media of like a dog at a dog shelter, and then someone is there to adopt the dog, and the dog is just so happy? I've seen a lot of those videos online. The dog is just wagging its tail. It's just so excited because the dog knows that he's being chosen to join a family, and he can leave the dog shelter. So even animals get excited, guys. So how is it possible that Israel wasn't excited to be Yahweh's special possession? So guys, with the story of the Canaanite woman was happier to be a dog than Israel was to be a son and daughter. God often, throughout the Bible, God refers to Israel as his son and sometimes his daughter. Okay? And so, Israel should have felt so honored and excited to be in that position, but they didn't. And here a Canaanite woman in the story now with Jesus, she is like happier to be in a position of a dog than Israel was to be in the position of a son or daughter. Now, was Jesus calling her a dog? I don't think so. I think really what Jesus is doing when he says this, it's actually a criticism of Israel, not a criticism of the woman. I think what he's saying is this, that Israel was the one who rejected him. The son and daughter rejected their God. And even Gentiles are happier being, in a relationship of like an animal, more than the son and daughter was excited to be in a relationship with their God. And so, what should happen if a child rejects their God in this case? Well, that's not a good situation, right? Israel is in a very dangerous situation right now. They're trying to kill their king, Jesus. They're trying to get rid of him. They're always planning to kill him. They don't care about him. They're not valuing him. At least the Pharisees and the leaders, all the top people, they're treating Jesus like garbage. And guys, I've been saying that the Pharisees still exist today. I've said that a few times in my videos. And yeah, they do. They don't call themselves Pharisees today. They call themselves, different names. There's a term like rabbinic Judaism or Talmudic, Judaism. It's basically turned into a really weird religion of works, a religion of traditions, and they hate Jesus and they hate his followers. So for that woman I was talking about who made that YouTube video talking about the Erev Rav, I really wanted to comment on the video and be super sensitive and super gentle, but I was like, you know what, that this woman is totally hard-hearted and totally blind. And so if someone is in that position, if they're blind and hard-hearted, they hate Jesus, they hate his followers, there's really nothing you can say. There's just nothing. They're just gonna, so and sometimes in situations it's almost better just to stay quiet, right? and let that person learn, just pray for them. And I just prayed for that woman, I prayed for that woman multiple times since I watched that video a few days ago. And so guys, the Pharisees still exist today. The spirit of the Pharisees, they hate Jesus so much. But like I said in the last episode, remember, the term Jew, the term Jew can mean so many different things today. That's why I use the word Pharisee to talk about that group today. Because they're just the same people, the same Pharisees who are rejecting their Messiah, who hate the Messiah, who hate the followers of the Messiah. You'll see on YouTube, if you go and watch the videos of Jews who talk about Judaism, you'll see under the comments on all their videos, Jesus is the Messiah. You missed your Messiah. Wake up, please wake up and embrace your Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. And the reason, and that really irritates them. That really, really irritates them, because there are so many followers of Jesus, a lot more than the Jews. So they're so used to hearing Christians say, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus is your Messiah, accept your Messiah. And they just get really defensive and just really upset over that. So I'd love to have them as friends and just talk to them about their own book, the Tanakh, which is my Old Testament. I love it so much. But they don't have ears to hear. They're totally blind and totally deaf. So guys, I want to ask you, has God ever rejected Israel? Like, why is it that now in the story, right, why is it that Israel is rejecting Jesus? Why is it that they don't feel, blessed to have been chosen by God? Why is it that the Gentiles feel more honored to have God help them than even the Jews? Why is that? Israel has rights and responsibilities, but has forgotten about them. Is Israel, now in the story, right, where Jesus and Israel, does Israel still have special rights and responsibilities? Yeah, they do. Jesus is affirming that. He's saying, the Jews are the children. It's not right to take the children's bread and to throw it to the dogs. So Jesus is upholding their rights and responsibilities, but they've just completely abandoned that. And that's just astonishing, guys, because Yahweh treated his special people so well. He's never forsaken them. He's never, he's never said, oh, you know what, Israel, I don't like you guys anymore. I'm going to choose a new people. I'm going to go choose the Chinese people, and the Chinese people are in their nation, I'm going to bless the whole world. Did Yahweh ever say that? No, he didn't say that. He chose Israel. Israel is his special possession. So they have no reason to believe that Yahweh has forgotten about them. It's them who has forgotten about Yahweh. So if I were a Jew living at the time of Jesus, okay, I would have recognized this. I'm sure I would have said this. Jesus, I would have gone to Jesus, right? Just a simple guy. I'm just a simple guy. I would have said, Jesus, thank you for choosing Israel. Thank you for never forgetting about us, even though we've forgotten about you over and over again. Starting today, we are going to remember our calling and bless the Gentiles. Please forgive us. Please help us and equip us with the strength and knowledge in order to be true children of Abraham. This is what I would have said to Jesus. I said, Jesus, I know the story. I remember Abraham. You promised that in the descendants of Abraham, the whole world would be blessed. I want to do that. I'm sorry that we've always forgotten about you, Jesus. Forgive us. Help us. I wanted to do this. Teach me how to do this. Right? Guys, because to be chosen, it involves rights and responsibilities. Right? Would you agree with that? If you're chosen, you have your rights, special privileges, and you also have special responsibilities. Like if I got married, let's say I would get married, right? I would tell my wife, here are your rights, my dear wife. You have your right to my loyalty. I'm not allowed to cheat on you. That's definitely, you have the right to that, and you have the right to special treatment. Right? I treat you in a way that's going to be in some way special, that sets you apart from all the other women, right? And that's what the word holy means. Okay, to be holy means to set apart. It doesn't mean that my wife is perfect. It means that she's holy because I made her holy. I chose her and I set her apart to be my wife. She has a special position toward me, right? It has nothing to do with her perfection, right? But she should try in the relationship to choose me too, because if she just tries to be like everybody else, and I'm saying no, you're a special one, you are my holy wife, right? And if she doesn't understand that, that's a problem, right? So let's say I would give her all these rights. You have the right to access me. All right, if I'm in a important business meeting and there's some urgent matter, she has the right to come and just interrupt my meeting. And then I would say, sorry, business people, I have more important things to attend to right now, so just hang on. And I go and my wife has top access to me, right? She would have the right to my love. I'd give her my love in a way that I can't give other people my love to, right? And access to my money, right? She has total access to my life. Why? Because she's the closest one to me. She's my chosen one. I've chosen her, right? So if I gave her all these rights, what do you think her responsibilities would be? What if she said to me, Mark, I don't want any responsibilities. I want my rights, but I don't want to have any responsibilities toward you, Mark. I don't want you to have any rights. I want the rights from you, but I don't want any responsibilities. What would you say to her in that situation? Let me know. What would you say to her? Guys, real love doesn't want to bring up the topic of rights and responsibilities. When you really love someone, you want a relationship of freedom where you're both choosing to freely do the things that make the other person happy, right? And you're choosing your role, and you're choosing yourself to limit your role. You're not like waiting for the other person to put limits on you. For example, like if I were married, I would want my wife to be totally loyal to me. I wouldn't want her, having like close relationships with other men. I wouldn't want that. So, like, imagine if she did do that. She's, have great relationships with other men. Well, that would force me then to bring up this topic of rights and responsibilities. But I wouldn't want to do this. I would want her to limit herself, to like rein herself in, to teach herself, how to do this and what I want, what her role requires of her. I would want that, so, what happens if people don't understand their rights and responsibilities? I would say the biggest problem in relationships today is that people don't know their rights and responsibilities. Our culture is totally lost. That's why our culture has so many broken relationships, so many failed marriages, so many broken families. Nobody understands this. That if someone is in a chosen position, they have rights and responsibilities. Does that make sense? Sometimes, guys, I feel like people think I'm crazy when I'm talking about this stuff. Because if you're in a relationship and there's no rights and responsibilities, well, that's called an acquaintance. Being an acquaintance, right? Like, imagine if you met someone one time at a party, and you talked once, maybe you've hung out once or twice. You know who they are, and maybe if you see them, sometimes you say, "Oh, hey, how are you doing?" "Good, thanks. I'm great. Everything's great." Do you have any rights? Does that person have to do anything for you? No. Do you have any responsibilities toward that person? No. You don't have to do anything for that person. If that person's, husband or wife dies, do you have to go to their funeral? No, you don't have to do anything. You're not friends with them. You're just acquaintances, right? So if we just strip rights and responsibilities out of the equation, if we just take them away, all we're left with is strangers or acquaintances, right? And that's why when you choose someone for anything, whether it be an employee, you choose a friend, you choose a wife, you choose a child. That's another one, right? You choose a child. That means you're automatically in a position of rights and responsibilities. But everybody in this world, at least in my culture, seems lost because they never talk about rights and responsibilities. They don't know what that should be. So what do you think about that, guys? I want to tell you a story that takes this example to the very extreme. I couldn't believe when I heard this. So this is kind of a funny but very sad story. But first, I just want to mention, guys, that in my videos, I'm not taking the sensitivities that I would take if I were talking to children. Okay, so I'm imagining that I'm talking to adults. I don't know who's watching I know most of the people watching my videos are adults, but we're talking about, very serious themes in these videos, like violence. Like the Bible is just full of violence. The Bible is full of sexual language, right? God, Yahweh calling his people prostitutes, whores, using that kind of language. So, if people, if I were making these videos for children, I would probably be a little bit more sensitive depending on the age group of the children. But I'm just assuming you're an adult. Okay. So now I want to tell you a story of a married woman who refused to have sex with her husband. I met this woman. So I had a friend who told me that her friend was very sad and considering getting a divorce. Okay, so my friend was asking for my advice, what I should do, what I would advise her friend to do. And I didn't know her friend's situation at all. I said, "Why is your friend considering getting a divorce? Is she and her husband, are they Christians? Do they follow Jesus?" She said, "Yeah, they follow Jesus. And I said, well, that's not acceptable. It's completely unacceptable to get a divorce. And then she told me the reason she was so sad is because her husband called her a prostitute. And I said, well, why would her husband call her a prostitute? That's crazy. And she said, because she refuses, she doesn't want to have sex with her husband. She just is not interested. She doesn't want to have that as part of their relationship at all. So what happened was they got married, and then they went on a honeymoon for a month. And they didn't have sex one time on their honeymoon, the whole honeymoon. And then they came back from their honeymoon and kind of started their life, together, living together. And she just refused to have sex with her husband. And I was like, what? I've never heard this before in my life. I was shocked. And then after she told me about her friend, I actually met the woman a few times, just casually, as like, I didn't tell her that her friend had gossiped and, told me all the information about her. But this woman was really nice, a very kind, gentle woman, good looking too, not old. Okay, we're not talking old people. Okay, if let's imagine a man who's 80 years old marries a woman who's 80 years old. Okay, maybe they've both been married before, their partners died, they have families from their previous marriages. Yeah, okay, I get in that situation, right? Two 80-year-old people, they get married. Why are they getting married? For companionship and to help each other and that kind of stuff. If they don't have sex, well, that's what I would imagine they wouldn't, because they're old, right? They're kind of past that age group, I would imagine. There are different phases of life, right? And so I think I would say it's totally normal for old people to get married and just love each other, be each other's companions. But this woman wasn't old at all, and neither was her husband. And so I was like, hey, I asked my friend, help me understand this. Why is it that she doesn't want to have sex with her husband? What's going on in her head? And she didn't really know. But this woman, my friend, was giving her friend advice that she should get divorced. Because my friend didn't even see this as a crucial matter. She thought her husband was completely unjustified to call his wife a prostitute just for not having sex. And I was like, well, okay, just think about this. The husband, right, will be like, why did you marry me? You just married me for my money? You just married me for safety? And you don't want to have any responsibilities toward me? You want what I'm giving you, rights, money, freedom, like protection, safety, all this stuff. I'm giving you all this stuff, and you don't even have the desire to please me, to make me happy at all. So I understood perfectly the husband's position. And I was like, I told my friend, I said, you're wrong in recommending a divorce. You're wrong about that. Don't tell her that. Don't tell her to get divorced. Tell her to start enjoying the idea of being one with her husband, of like intimacy with her husband. That's what God designed. God designed that a husband and wife will have sex. And it's, I don't know. Sometimes in life I just lose all my faith in humanity. How could a woman be so stupid that she just doesn't even understand that that sex is a part of marriage. Like, because that's something then you have to disclose before you get married, right? The woman should have told the man, yeah, I want to marry you, but I just want you to know that we're not going to have sex ever. That's something you got to tell them, right? I mean, like, it's like, how can a woman be so ignorant and so naive that she just doesn't understand this stuff? Guys, I don't know. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that situation. What would you say in that situation? What would you recommend in that situation? I don't know, guys. Anyway, that's the story of a woman who wanted all the rights, but didn't want the responsibility to please her husband. Didn't even have the desire to do it. I don't know, guys. Nobody in Western society is taught about rights and responsibilities. How about in your culture, in your society? Who teaches each person about their role? Are they just left to figure it out as they go along? Or do men and women get married with kind of a knowledge of what their expectations are, what both their rights and their responsibilities are? This is a huge, huge problem in the world today. So it's really important for a wife to know her rights and responsibilities, and for a husband to know his rights and responsibilities. And when they fail in their responsibilities, there needs to be a lot of grace, right? A good relationship needs to be full of grace. Any relationship, guys, it could be a friend relationship. It could be a boss-employee relationship, but especially a husband-wife relationship. There's got to be so much grace. Like, what happens if one of them gets sick and they can't really do their responsibilities properly? What happens if they lose their money and they can't really do their responsibilities? There's got to be a lot of grace, but there's got to be an effort to try to fulfill the rights and responsibilities, right? Guys, we need a lot of grace. God has grace with you and me. God has so much grace with me, and I know with you too. He's full of grace. And guys, has God been gracious to Israel? Yeah, God has shown so much grace to Israel, even though Israel has refused to fulfill the responsibilities that God had given them, right? In this whole story, almost nobody has been interested in the Gentiles. No Jew has been excited about God's mission to the Gentiles. Rather, they get so angry with the word Gentile. They loved Jesus. Remember, he stood up in the synagogue when he started his ministry. He said, "The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me to proclaim freedom to the captives, to open the eyes of the blind." They were like, wow, this Jesus guy sounds so great. And Jesus said, today, this scripture in Isaiah 61, it's been fulfilled in your presence. Today, this is happening. And they're like, wow, this guy's great. We love him. And then Jesus started talking about Gentiles, and they hated him, and they tried to kill him. Has God been gracious to Israel? Yes, so much grace. But they've just refused their responsibilities, guys. Guys, Yahweh called Abraham to be a blessing to the world. Remember that at the very first calling of Abraham, he called Abraham, right? He said, I'm gonna give you a land, go into this land. So Abraham went from this place, probably somewhere around Iran area, and he went all the way to Israel. And then Yahweh told Abraham, look up at the stars, right? That's how many your descendants are going to be, more than the stars in the sky. And, I'm going to bless you. And through you, the whole world is going to be blessed. So right at the very beginning of Israel, remember the Jews, they call Abraham their father. We saw that in the last couple episodes. The Jews said, Abraham is our father. And Jesus said, if Abraham were your father, you would love me. You would accept me. You wouldn't be trying to kill me. Abraham didn't do that kind of stuff. So, at this point in the story, Israel has completely forgotten about this. They have forgotten about Abraham, their father, the covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham. Man, that's so sad, guys. So now what's going to happen with Jesus? The story of Jesus. They're rejecting him. They're trying to kill him. Well, we see that the message is Yahweh is not going to forget about this, guys. He's not going to forget about Gentiles like you and me. So Israel is the one who's being a bad wife, a very bad wife. Not good to be a bad wife, guys. Try to be a good husband, a good wife, a good role, whatever son, daughter, whatever your role is in life, try to do it really well and take it, consider it a joy and consider yourself blessed to have that role, that you have rights, you have responsibilities and stuff like that. So anyway, guys, I just want to end this video by talking about Esther. Now, we didn't talk about this story in my overview. Sometimes I don't know which stories to talk about and which not to. But Esther is a book in the Bible. It's named after a woman named Esther, a young Jewish woman named Esther, living in Persia during the time of the exile. Okay, so remember the exile when God was punishing his people for 70 years, right? And even after they went back and rebuilt their temple, a lot of the Jews actually stayed over in Persia. They didn't go back. And so over this time of the exile, there was a situation where the Jews almost got completely annihilated from the earth. They almost got wiped out. It was only this, God saved his people through Queen Esther. I just want to read you the first few, the first part of the story. Okay, I'm not going to read the whole story. I think I'll put a link, if I remember, I'll try to put a link right down there. I'll pin a link underneath this video where you can read the whole book of Esther. It's only 10 chapters. It takes about maybe, 30 minutes to read. Okay, it's a really interesting story. I think you'll like it. It's great. So this is about, we're somewhere around maybe 500 BC here. Okay, just to give you a reference. So let's just start reading the first little bit, because it ties into what I'm saying with the wife not wanting to do her responsibilities. And I just want to mention, this is extremely important story for the Jews, even today. So all throughout the history of the Jews, this has been extremely important because they came this close to being totally annihilated, and they celebrate their salvation, how they got saved, and they made a festival. There's a festival called Purim, where every year the Jews celebrate this. Okay, and the reason I wanted to talk about this today is because today is Purim. Okay, so I'm making this video on March 13th, 2025. So today, guys, is Purim, and I just wanted to talk about this so you know a little bit of Jewish history here with this. So, okay, so it starts by saying this: these events happened in the days of King Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces, stretching from India to Ethiopia. Okay, so there were different kings of Persia, right, during this period of time, like King Darius, King Cyrus, King, Xerxes, that kind of thing. So there's this king, right? King Xerxes. He reigns over, the Persian Empire at that time was huge. It went all the way from India to Africa, like North Africa and stuff like that. So at that time, Xerxes ruled his empire from his royal throne at the fortress of Susa. Okay, in the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. He invited all the military officers of Persia and Media, as well as the princes and nobles of the provinces. The celebration lasted 180 days, a tremendous display of the opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. Man, can you imagine going to a party for 180 days? That's a long party, guys. So when it was all over, the king gave a banquet for all the people, from the greatest to the least, who were in the fortress of Susa. It lasted for 7 days and was held in the courtyard of the palace garden. The courtyard was beautifully decorated with white cotton curtains and blue hangings, which were fastened with white linen cords and purple ribbons to silver rings embedded in marble pillars. Wow. Gold and silver couches stood on a mosaic pavement of porphyry. I don't even know what that means. Porphyry. Do you know what that word means, guys? I don't even know. Porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. So porphyry, I guess it must be some kind of stone. Nice, expensive kind of stone. So for 7 days, okay, now we're at the end of the 180 days, throwing a special banquet in the garden, the courtyard of the palace for 7 days. Okay, so drinks were served in gold goblets of many designs, and there was an abundance of royal wine, reflecting the king's generosity. By edict of the king, no limits were placed on the drinking, for the king had instructed all his palace officials to serve each man as much as he wanted. At the same time, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. All right, so Queen Vashti is King Xerxes' wife. Okay, she's the queen. Oh boy, what's going to happen here, guys? On the 7th day of the feast, when King Xerxes was in high spirits because of the wine, he told the 7 eunuchs who attended him, here are their names here. So he instructed his 7 eunuchs to bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze on her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. Oh, guys, this is just the beginning of the story. I'll give you a hint. Queen Esther became the new queen because Queen Vashti rejected her king. So Queen Vashti, here we see a wife rejecting her husband, rejecting the king, and he takes a new queen, Queen Esther. So guys, it's a really exciting story. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing. It just takes about 20 or 30 minutes to read. I'll post a link down there under this video so you can hopefully read that if you want. But yeah, like I said, today is Purim. It's the day when Queen Esther, saves the Jews from total annihilation. It's crazy. Now, I just want to go back to what Jesus said to the centurion. Okay, Jesus, remember he said, "Truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. I say to you that many will come from the east and the west and will take their places at the feast with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the subjects of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we see that Jesus is making a prophecy here that the Gentiles are going to come in. It's like it's almost like ready or not, they're coming in. Okay, so Jesus is saying this. Who's he speaking to? Well, he's speaking to the crowd of there's probably Gentiles or Roman soldiers, and there are the Jews. He's just stating a fact. Ready or not, the time is going to come where the banquet is going to happen. The feast is going to happen, and many are going to come in. Okay, that's just how God's plan is going to be. And the people who were invited first, they're the ones who are going to be kept out of the feast. They're going to be rejected. So, guys, next episode we're going to take a look at a very important parable where Jesus talks about a wedding banquet, God's invitation. Okay, so that's going to be great. I love that parable. Just to let you know, you are invited to God's banquet, guys. Just trust in Jesus, put your faith in Jesus, and you will be there with me, with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the people in this story who have had faith in Jesus. Remember, that's what he wants. That's what God wants from us, faith. Don't be like Queen Vashti, who thinks maybe she thought she was better. She was so proud. I am not going to obey the king. I am going to reject him. Then he rejected her. So, and just also remember that God's covenant with Abraham involved the whole world. Okay, the Jews, if you happen to be a Jew watching my videos, please read the Tanakh and just recognize this fact that the heart of Yahweh has always been for the whole world. Okay, and the Jews should have really valued that and been excited about that, about being Yahweh's special possession. But they just never were, and even to this day, they've completely despised their God. It's really sad, guys, but remember what Jesus said. If you reject me, you reject the Father who sent me. If you don't have me, you don't have the Father. I and the Father are one, right? So anyway, guys, and I just want to leave you with a question. Okay, now I'm done the video. Now it's been over an hour long. Thank you for sticking with me, guys. I just want to leave you with this question. Which man can be more angry? A man with a heart of love or a man with a heart of hate? What do you think? What's your answer to this question? Who can become more angry? A person whose heart is full of love or a person whose heart is full of hate? You know what my answer is? My answer is a heart of love. If you love someone, you can be so much more angry than if you hate them. And so when we're talking about Yahweh, remember Yahweh's heart is full of love. When we're talking about Jesus's heart is full of love for all people. But just remember that the person whose heart is full of love can become fiercely angry. So keep this in mind as we go into the next episode. So guys, thank you very much for watching. As always, I love you very much. Hope you're doing great today. And as always, I'll see you over in the next episode of Mark's Bible Overview. Take care.